Recently, exclusive video of Pooh Shiesty music and his father incarcerated appeared, and the situation there is rapidly getting worse. The internet was rocked by reports that he was brutally assaulted by prisoners purportedly connected to Gucci Mane. We analyze everything that transpired, how it developed behind bars, and what it might entail going forward in this music video. Residents of a peaceful neighborhood in Cordova, Tennessee, noticed something on their block early on April 1st, Music 2026, that they most likely never anticipated. Early on Wednesday morning, federal agents were spotted in and near a Cordova, Tennessee, property. Fox 13 Memphis, a local news site, later reported that the FBI was carrying out executions. A search and arrest warrant music was granted at the residence by a federal court. Brown paper sacks and multiple computer displays were carried out by FBI agents. Investigators investigated a number of cars parked in the house's garage after spending hours inside. Lantrell Donnell Williams is the owner of the house they raided. Records indicate that the rapper and his father share the name Lantrell Donnell Williams, although it is unclear exactly who owns the raided residence. According to property documents, Room 3 is one of the 4 bedrooms. After being listed for $719,000, the 5B house was bought in April 2023 for $656,500. Now, that house did not contain the individual they were searching for. In Dallas, Texas, Pooh Shiesty was taken into custody. The rapper's real name is Lantrell D., according to law enforcement sources who spoke with TMZ. In relation to a federal criminal matter, Williams Jr. was taken into custody and jailed on Wednesday. While his father was hauled up in Memphis, Pooh Shiesty was taken into custody from his halfway house in Dallas, Texas. Yes, the father and kid were both taken into custody on the same day. Just 6 months after being freed from a Pennsylvania prison, Pooh Shiesty was arrested. 6 months. He only had that much freedom. On October 7, 2025, he returned to the outside world. April 11th, the following week, would have been his first release date. He returned home early, but now he's back in prison with his father at his side. Music no one initially understood why. A press conference was planned, but officials had not yet disclosed the charges against either guy. And the narrative went from terrible to unimaginable when those specifics were revealed. During a music press conference on Thursday, federal officials declared that Shiesty and 8 other individuals who are accused of kidnapping and robbing 3 prominent members of the music business at gunpoint inside a Dallas recording studio earlier this year had been taken into custody. Gucci Mane, who signed Pooh Music Shiesty, made him famous, and welcomed him home from prison a few months ago, was one of those prominent figures in the music industry. Williams served 3 years of a 63-month sentence on gun-related offenses before being released from jail in October. Music. Gucci Mane posted a celebration of his release. The Mane slime, Pooh Shiesty, is back. Welcome home. In 3 months, from welcome home to kidnapping charges. This is the timeline. You must comprehend the contract and the relationship between Pooh Shiesty and Gucci Mane in order to comprehend why he allegedly did what he did. One of the key players in Southern hip-hop is Gucci Mane, whose true name is Radic Danik Davis. Along with fellow Atlanta rappers T and Jeezy, Gucci Mane is recognized as one of the pioneers of trap music. With his breakthrough track Icy, he rose to prominence in the mid-2000s and proceeded to amass a sizable catalog by consistently releasing albums and mixtapes. Beyond his career in music, Gucci created a record label that served as a platform for up-and-coming artists, something that many rappers wanted to do. 2017 Records was that label. Shiesty was a notable addition to Gucci's 2017 label in 2020. For Lantrell Williams Jr., a young rapper from Memphis, this action marked the turning point in his life. Pooh Shiesty gained significant label distribution, industry contacts, music, and the legitimacy that comes with being co-signed by a legend as a result of the signing. Before his run-ins with the law, Pooh Shiesty joined Gucci's Bull 10 label in 2017 and gained notoriety with his viral track Back in Blood, which was released in November 2021, featuring Chicago rapper Lil Durk. However, the honeymoon doesn't always last, as is sometimes the case in the music industry. Music prosecutors claimed in a criminal complaint filed in Dallas federal court that Shiesty was dissatisfied with the conditions of his recording contract and scheduled a meeting with Maine to address the issue. The basis for everything that purportedly transpired was this dissatisfaction with the contract. An important event occurred in October 2024. With the exception of Shiesty and one other artist, Gamani declared on X that he would be releasing every musician registered to his label. Therefore, Gucci Mane kept Pooh Shiesty on while other musicians were let go. On the one hand, it shows confidence in Shiesty's abilities and worth. However, if Shiesty wished to leave and was turned down, that would be a cage rather than a cosign. Michael Babcock of TMZ says to Fox 4 that letting Pooh Shiesty leave Gucci Mane's record company would have been a financial setback. Music. The main source of tension is that Gucci Mane kept Shiesty on the team for financial reasons, and Shiesty supposedly left for very personal reasons. Whether the disagreement was genuine was never a question. It was always about how that disagreement would be settled. Williams' music wanted to be released since he didn't like the conditions of his contract. Prosecutors claimed in the lawsuit that Pooh Shiesty music opted for violence rather than resolving the conflict through legal representation and discussions. The Department of Justice provided a detailed, terrifying account of what is said to have occurred music on January 10, 2026. 3 months after Pooh Shiesty was released from prison, Lantrell Williams Jr. Music reportedly requested a meeting with Mane in Dallas on January 10 to talk about his 2017 contract with Mane's label. Music. The meeting was presented as a typical business sit-down, according to the criminal complaint that was submitted on Monday to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas. Music. Ray Bold claims that on January 10th, Gucci Mane and 2 other people went to the studio for a business meeting that Shiesty had set up. He said that all 9 of the defendants had traveled from Memphis to Dallas Music in order to abduct and rob victims who believed they were there for a business meeting. Consider the scope of the accusations made by the prosecution. With a well-thought-out plan, 9 individuals traveled from Memphis to Dallas Music. This was not portrayed as an unplanned incident that occurred amid a furious dispute. The DOJ claims that this music was planned from the start. According to federal authorities, the attack was prearranged. Investigators believe the contract release documentation music was produced at a Staple Shop hours before Pooh Shiesty's father reportedly assisted in setting up the meeting music. Lantrell Williams Sr., his father, wasn't merely a passenger. The car utilized by the kidnapping group was rented by Pooh Shiesty's father. According to Bold Music, the coordinated movement of several defendants from Memphis to Dallas was confirmed by mobile phone records and license plate reader data. The defendants are accused of packing music into cars, driving or busting from Memphis to Dallas, checking into a hotel, and then gathering at the Dallas Parkway Music Studio where Gucci Mane and 2 other professionals in the music industry were waiting for what they thought was a legitimate business meeting. Each of the 9 defendants listed in the complaint narrates a music tale on their own. Lantrell Williams Jr., Pooh Shiesty, Lantrell Williams Sr., Rodney Wright Jr., Big 30, Kadarius Waters, De'Aaron Gibson, DeMarcus Glover, Cord Johnson, Darian McDaniel, Terrence Rogers, father and son, 2 rappers, and 6 associates are all purportedly gathering at a single studio for a single goal. Despite being childhood buddies, Pooh Shiesty and Big 30 are both from Memphis, Tennessee. Moneybagg Yo's Bread Gang label has signed Big 30. Big 30 had no contractual obligations to Gucci Mane. It has nothing to do with a disagreement over a contract. Prosecutors claim that he was there as support, muscle, and a member of the crew. At the time of the alleged kidnapping and robbery in January, Pooh Shiesty had been released to home confinement and was prohibited from carrying a pistol. He remained under federal supervision. Prosecutors claim that even though he was still wearing an ankle monitor, he left his halfway house in Dallas and proceeded to the studio. It seems like something from a movie rather than a gathering of the music industry, and what the prosecution describes as taking place inside that studio is quite terrifying. Shiesty arrived at the studio with 8 other people, including rapper Big 30 and his father, Lantrell Williams Sr. After entering the control room of the studio, where the victims were watching a football game, Shiesty dragged Davis into a different recording room with Big 30 and William Sr. and showed him the contract release documents. Imagine this. Gucci Mane is in a studio control room with two associates. A game is being watched by them. They're at ease. They believe they are going to discuss a recording contract. Gucci Mane is then taken into a separate room with his father and the Big 30 after Pooh Shiesty separates him from the other two. Pooh Shiesty showed the label owner the contract termination documents and instructed them to sign. After an argument, Pooh Shiesty produced what looked like an AK-style pistol and had him sign. The weapon is described in the federal criminal complaint as an AK-style pistol that was taken out of a bag and aimed straight at Gucci Mane. Shiesty made Davis put a date next to his signature after William Sr. informed his son that the papers required one. The parent in the room reportedly discovered a technicality when Big 30 was recording the signature on his phone. Music The Big 30 supposedly filmed the entire event, and the papers required a date. Consider the boldness with which prosecutors are describing this. Not just the use of force, but also the seeming conviction that this document, signed under pressure at a gun barrel, would somehow stand up. Shiesty stole Davis's wedding band, watch, earrings, and money after he signed. The Gucci man had his wedding ring removed from his finger. Not only did the violence allegedly extend from the recording area into the control room, but it also involved personal belongings, intimate items, and assets from the music industry. The other two victims were robbed by the other co-defendants back in the control room when they produced firearms and AK-style pistols music. One victim was nearly unconscious after being choked from behind. One victim had his jewelry and wallet stolen after being pushed into a couch. Another was robbed of a Rolex watch, a Louis Vuitton purse, and other valuables after being choked almost to death. To stop the victims from fleeing, Big 30 blocked the door. They blocked the exits. There was no escape route. And possibly the most eerie aspect of the whole complaint. The victims thought they would be put to death. Prosecutors are not editorializing in that way. The victims told federal investigators that they truly feared for their lives at that very time. Before being told to leave the building, victims thought they were going to be put to death. The defendants reportedly deprived them of their belongings, their dignity, and any sense of security before they were finally permitted to depart. The testimony of victims is not the only basis for the DOJ's case. The enormous amount of tangible and digital evidence is what makes this situation especially disastrous for the defendants. Williams Jr. would be in violation of his home detention terms, according to prosecutors, who claim to have electronic monitoring data that placed him in the studio. Pooh Shiesty was wearing an ankle monitor at the time, according to the U.S. attorney. He is purportedly placed in the precise location of the alleged crime at the precise moment it is said to have happened by his own electronic monitoring equipment. For someone who is meant to be on home detention, that alone is a disastrous piece of evidence. Multiple defendants are seen traveling from Memphis to Dallas together, according to cell phone data and car plate scanners. According to records, Pooh Shiesty's father rented a vehicle for the group. Security footage of the crime scene, a neighboring office supply store, and a hotel where a number of defendants later slept. Social media is another. Within hours of leaving the Dallas studio, this particular detail completely turned the internet upside down. According to Rebold, several of the defendants were posting pictures of what looked to be jewelry that had been stolen from the victims on social media. They allegedly stole cash, jewelry, and Rolex watches from victims before posting pictures of themselves on social media a few hours later. The DOJ displayed screenshots of DeMarcus Glover wearing purportedly stolen jewelry from his social media accounts. According to U.S. Attorney Rebold, fingerprint evidence that matched at least two of the defendants was found at the crime scene following the incident, and security footage was acquired from the studio, a nearby office supplies music store, and a hotel where several of the defendants stayed. Social media posts, license plate readers, fingerprints, surveillance, music cell phone data, ankle monitor data, and rental car records. At that press conference, prosecutors presented an astounding quantity of evidence. On Wednesday, 8 of the 9 suspects, including Shiesty Music, were taken into custody in Memphis, Nashville, and Dallas. Terrence Rogers, the ninth suspect, has not yet been taken into custody, according to the DOJ. At the news conference, the U.S. attorney stated that Rogers would shortly be taken into jail. The accusations are serious. Williams Jr., his father, Lantrell Williams Sr., and rapper Big 30 are among the 9 defendants accused of kidnapping and conspiracy to conduct kidnapping. Each defendant faces a maximum sentence of life in prison if found guilty. Not 5 years, not 10, but life. For background, this is Pooh Shiesty's second significant run-in with the federal legal system. Williams was accused on federal charges, including conspiracy to possess firearms and furtherance of violent crime, following his arrest for the second shooting. Hobbs engaged in robbery, conspiracy, and firearm discharge in support of violent crimes. Music in 2022, the 26-year-old musician was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in prison instead of the 8 years he had initially faced. At the age of 26, he now faces the prospect of a life sentence in prison. In the meantime, Pooh Shiesty made remarks about Gucci Mane live on social media in the hours following the arrests. Posts on X claim that Pooh Shiesty went live and exposed Gucci Mane, accusing him of going to the police after the encounter and dubbing him a snitch. The response on social media was immediate and massive. His Instagram account was inundated with compliments, queries, and criticism from fans. A video of a brand new, high-end car was Pooh Shiesty's final Instagram post prior to his detention. On March 11th, he shared it. Shy has been leading what seemed to be a lavish lifestyle since his release from prison in October. Shiesty has been using social media to promote his new music since being released from prison. He has also posted pictures and videos of himself posing with big piles of money. The rapper from Back in Blood posted a video of himself buying a brand new, high-end vehicle at a Collierville, Tennessee dealership. CSD's new Mercedes and a celebratory greeting from the dealership staff are shown in the video. He launched his first day out song, FDO, which eventually became 2020 SIX's first major rap success and was later named by Complex as one of the top 20 entries in the long-running First Day Out tradition. All of that goodwill, all of that momentum, and all of that second chance were lost. Obliterated by what the prosecution claims was a well-planned, brutally carried out armed abduction and robbery of the man who constructed the structure that Pooh Shiesty was wrapped around. There is no space for interpretation in the language used by the U.S. attorney. In this instance, the victims arrived in Dallas to carry out lawful business, but they encountered violence and firearms. Regarding the question in the title, Pooh Shiesty and his father being viciously attacked, Rabel stated, "I'm here to tell you that it will be vigorously investigated and prosecuted for anyone contemplating using violence and intimidation as a business practice. It is the opposite of reality. There was no attack on them." Prosecutors claim that Shiesty was the mastermind behind the crime. Meanwhile, Shiesty's father is charged with helping to plan and execute the alleged crime. Every piece of evidence the DOJ has provided indicates that Pooh Shiesty and his father were responsible for the vicious attack that occurred in that Dallas studio, not the other way around. The person with the gun aimed at his face was Gucci Mane. The person who had his wedding ring removed was Gucci Mane. The other victims were pinned in a room with no way out and choked until they were almost unconscious. Music: the facts convey a different story than the title. If the prosecution is correct, Pooh Shiesty and his family will suffer severe and long-lasting repercussions.